But whenever you have any kind of questions about treatments or anything going on with your family, where do you generally what do you find is a good resource for health information?
So I have quite a few resources that I use. I love German New Medicine. I also study neurosensory motor reflex integration, so I have many texts and resources, both online and actual in-hand texts that I refer to. And from time to time, a good old Google search will find some good health information. The biggest challenge there is find a reputable source.
Great. Now, kind of to the big questions that I really wanted to get to that I thought you did such a wonderful job describing, and I thought that made you look so unique and interesting is your stance on immunization. Do you think you could tell the class a little bit about kind of what you think about immunization and your background? I know it was very robust.
Yeah. Being that I began my career in the ICU and the neonatal ICU, I have been exposed to and actually administered many vaccines. Currently, my children, we've decided on an extended vaccination schedule as they were growing, just because I have a great awareness of how the immune system works and how the body responds to stressors. And I've always tried to create the best environment for my children to be exposed, at the same time for me to take care of the common good the best way I can.
And tell me a little bit about, I thought what was really interesting is you said that where you started to kind of explore kind of that German medicine, but also kind of coming from your childhood as well, from your mother. Is that correct?
Sure, that's right. Growing up in South Louisiana, I was always exposed to my mom making tinctures, making little herbal mixes my entire life. We saw traiteurs, we saw healers. We went to healing services at church. That was all sort of commonplace. And so even growing up, my healthcare practices were pretty integrative. I've always had a mix of Western medicine and our culture in the South. And it's always been sort of a part of who I am.
I think that's really interesting, and I think that's what kind of stood out to me, because I think that from what you were brought up with and then how you've been trained and you're a clinical professional in the healthcare industry and how you've integrated it and for the health of your family, do you think you could elaborate a little bit more about how you made those decisions for your children? And I know that you said that your children are partially immunized. Could you elaborate a little bit more about kind of how that works and how you made those decisions and how you planned for that?
Sure. So because, vaccine injury is something real, right? Vaccine injury does happen, whether it's syncope, whether it's anaphylaxis, whether it's the way the body responds to the stressor, to that virus being injected to the body, can really alter sensory processing. And so many people think that sensory processing is just the way we process information in a intellectual way. Actually, sensory processing is something that can really translate all the way down to the cellular level. The way the body responds to an antigen, to a virus, to anything can be altered if the immune system is already under some sort of a stressor. Whether that stressor be a bacteria, a virus, maybe just a stressor from an allergen, environmental allergy, any of those things sort of come into play when choosing when and how to vaccinate your children. So because my kids might have had a runny nose, right, when it was
Mm-hmm.
right on that 2-week schedule, or we might have been having some gut issues at the time. That's how I decided to extend schedules. Also, based on weight, if my children didn't have a whole lot of issues gaining weight, but I also knew that if they weren't eliminating properly, that they also wouldn't be able to process the vaccine the way their body should.
Okay, and I recall you said that you worked closely with another physician to make this schedule, or how did you go about just ensuring things went smoothly?
Sure. So Western A Price Society has a wealth of information that anyone can access, and also Dr. Sears has a wealth of information about how you can adjust and just take precautions with the whole vaccination immunization schedule. My pediatrician was very, very respectful and supportive of all of our healthcare practices. But, like we talked about earlier, there's also, like this personal judgment and this responsibility that we should all have for, our bodies and our overall wellness. And because that was sort of common ground, it never became an issue.
So do you feel any pressure by society right now that you can't really have the freedom to, I mean, I know you were supported by your pediatrician, but do you feel like currently right now you feel the stress or pressure to have your children receive all these vaccinations at all, or?
Well, we also have a very unique situation. My children are in an independent private school, and so our community as a whole sort of respects freedom to choose with healthcare and, like just healthcare freedom in general. And so I've never felt any pressure from like our school community. I know that there's just a lot of scare tactics on both ends of the issue of immunization today, but because I've done my research and I have a pretty strong belief that, doing common good at the same time making the best decision for each situation and each child and each body, that's really the core issue, right? Because some of us have egg allergies. Some of us don't process and detox well. And as we, grow as a society, neurodiversity is becoming a more and more pervasive issue. And so we just really need to stay in the place where we understand that each body is uniquely made and very, very processes things very, very differently.
Now, how do you feel about making sure that your children stay away from harm, but also, protecting when you're going out in the community and everything? Do you feel like that there's any sort of threat or anything for your children to get exposed to anything, or if they're sick, what is the process of
Sure.
yeah.
Well, that's one of the things we talked about in the first interview was that,
Mm-hmm.
my son actually did have the flu this year. We choose not to vaccinate, and he actually did have the flu. And because of the germ theory of German new medicine that says that if the body has a shared conflict and a stressor, then that's how the body transmits viruses and bacteria, because we all know that we have these microbes all around us all the time, and not everybody gets sick just because they've been in contact with it. And so that definitely speaks to like the basic body stress response, right? And so while my son had the flu this year, I paid attention, right? Like I didn't parade him around like in grocery stores. We did sort of a reverse isolation, right? Like just like if one of my kids had leukemia, I would protect my child from the outside world. And if you have an active virus or an active infection, because you don't know what shared conflicts exist both generationally and emotional, spiritual conflicts, you don't know what those conflicts are with the other person. You really should take care and just let them make the decision. Do you want to be exposed or not? And that's kind of how we approach all germ theory within our house. We'll let you know, hey, so-and-so has a runny nose. It's green. It's yellow. It might be viral. It might be bacterial. And we'll let whomever wants to engage with us decide if they want to be exposed.
Right. So have your children received all their vaccinations on the adolescent vaccine schedule, or are they still, are there just some that you decided to opt out on at all?
You know what, I couldn't remember exactly if my kids had the varicella. Actually, you know what, we did talk about this last time. My mom had shingles, and I felt like it was the right thing to do at that time to go on and vaccinate my kids. So they did have their varicella. My older child, she's an adult, she's 21. She's gotten all of her immunizations. She's not missed a thing.
Actually, I wanted to ask you this, and I ended up forgetting to ask you this the other day, but currently there's a big push for teenagers to start getting the HPV vaccine. What are your thoughts on that course? Do you think parents should, or physicians or parents should really promote that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so we actually had an experience with HPV, of somewhat of a syncope episode with the HPV. When it first came out, that vaccination, it seemed like there was some real sound evidence that protection from human papillomavirus was, this would make sense. And unbeknownst to me, my child had a reaction to it, and I decided that we would not receive the full course. After that, I was like, didn't think this would happen, so we backed off. I really think that it really is very, very important for us to not only jump on a bandwagon for and against, but to really evaluate each situation and pay really close attention to how the body is processing at that given time. If I would have been paying attention to the signs and symptoms, I would have recognized that her body was under stress, and there was probably a good chance she would have a reaction then and there. But I wasn't paying attention. It seemed like a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like it was a good idea at the time, and I went along with it really because I had such a good relationship with our physician at the time. I thought, okay, we'll do it. And after that episode, he was totally on board. But yeah, it seems like she didn't respond too well to that, so maybe we won't do it again. And that just speaks to there are both physicians and healthcare professionals that really do understand that each body processes these vaccines, these immunizations differently. And we should be very cautious with how we go after this herd immunity that we're looking for, because it's not for everyone. Some people would do better with the wait and see, right? Like some people just don't need that additional stress.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I feel like the words herd immunity has been sort of like a buzzword lately. You're hearing it tossed around, and I think that a lot of people know what it is, but then don't know what it is. What are your thoughts about herd immunity, but also I understand that I understand your background and your perspective. So I'm wondering if parents were to have the choice to kind of make their own vaccination schedules for their children, make that choice for them. How do you think that would be conducive to herd immunity, or what are your thoughts on that? I know I'm asking this because you're a clinical professional, so I know you know what you're talking about.
Right. Well, so this is the thing. And, we kind of touched on this a little bit before.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of things that hurt a lot of things may hurt. A lot of things may cause temporary discomfort, might cause an issue. But possibly, it's more important that we allow people to, and I don't want to say suffer the consequence, but that's just what's coming up. That's just coming up in my head right now.
Sure.
To really walk out the consequence of being irresponsible with their healthcare practices. And so, as much as I value the idea that, we want to protect and preserve, wellness over time, it's the right thing to do for government to actually overreach in that area. I just don't know.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Val, it's okay. I know that was kind of a, I know I don't even know a word to say that, but I know that's a rough question, but it's just because it's been tossed around so much and it's such a buzzword and such a hot topic right now in the media. And I'm gonna kind of wrap it up pretty soon, but I just wanted to ask also, if you're talking to public health professionals or even any policymakers, what would you, if you had the option to say something to them, what would you like to tell them as for the future of public health and for parents and children regarding immunizations?
Sure. In regards to immunizations, I think that, there's been just a really pervasive theme of disempowerment for wellness. And when it comes to immunizations, I think that because so many people don't even realize that they have their own, that they can choose and they do have the freedom to decide what they want for their bodies, that many people think that, they have to, or they have to throw the baby out with the bathwater and they should do nothing. There are too many people who are too far to the right and too far to the left. And I think that public health professionals, it's their main responsibility to educate before they mandate. And that's probably the best way to kind of alleviate some of the issues that we see today with all the scare tactics and propaganda that's all over the media, is that if people are well educated and then they learn that they have to be their own advocate, right? And so as a public health professional, I think that mandates are great and they're a good thing. As there are people who don't have the intellectual capacity to do their own research. And so it's a good thing, but we have to continually educate in a way that people are empowered to make their own choices in regards to health and wellness.